My name is Maya Guarnieri. When Mohamed and I met in 2011, I was a journalist living in Tel Aviv.
My name is Mohamed Jaradat. I'm a former news and documentary producer.
I had at that time, I still have at this time, American and Israeli citizenship both. And I went to the West Bank to report a story about the Palestinian Authority's bid for an upgrade at the United Nations. I wanted to do man on the street interviews, but I lacked, the Arabic that would expand my man on the street interviews beyond English speakers. I was out at a cafe, a place called Beit Anisa. It was kind of like a restaurant, bar, cafe kind of thing, and with some friends. There's a big group of people, everyone knew each other somehow. And I turned to a friend and I said, "Oh, I need a translator." And he said, "No, everyone here speaks English." I said, "No, not for here, but the bid for the upgrade was taking place the following day. The Palestinian Authority was going to, or representatives of the Palestinian Authority were going to present it at the United Nations, and it would be broadcast on a big screen in Ramallah. So that was taking place the following day, and my friend said, well, he looked around the circle. He said, "There's this guy, Mohammed, who works as a journalist, does translation, producing. Maybe he'll work with you."
That night when I met Maya, she told me about the story, what her plan is, and we talked about that. It was the first time we meet. We agreed to meet next day to start with the work, and we did that next day. There was like a big chair in Ramallah to celebrate the UN seat, the upgrade, and we started there. We started with the interviews in the street. We met few people there. After that, we went, I think there were a protest and clashes at Qalandia camp. We spent like the whole day together. We had some tear gas. We enjoyed the protest somehow. And then we got separated. Like she went back to Jerusalem, I went back to Ramallah. We got married when we moved to the United States. Here, there we were together as a couple, as friends, or boyfriend, girlfriend. The situation there is sensitive for many reasons. Culture, security. There is always a fear that if you speak with someone from the other side, like someone with an Israeli ID, that there is something that they could be connected to the Shabak or to the Mossad or someone from the other side, someone from the enemy side. You will be dealing with them and being cautious. You want to understand why they're coming here. Are they real or they just pretend or acting up to cover other things?
Mm.
And for me, I was raised like this since I was a kid, like always to have this security element and to ask more questions and to try to discover. For me, it took me like a few hours to discover that she's not and to see like the truth.
To answer briefly, we met in 2011. I was living in Tel Aviv then. I was working as a freelance journalist. The Arab Spring had slowed down work for both of us significantly. We were both freelancers at that time. No children, no obligations, no commitments. It's fine to be a freelancer. But as work had slowed down, so I ended up taking a job in Jerusalem. I moved to Jerusalem. And then I took the job from there. I took the job at Al-Quds University, which is in East Jerusalem, outside of the wall. The job at Al-Quds University was through Bard College. It was a collaborative program, and I became a teacher there. I had taught in the United States as well. Anyway, so I was then living in West Jerusalem and was commuting between every day almost between Jewish West Jerusalem and Palestinian East Jerusalem. I was going through checkpoints every day. I'll be honest, before the job at Al-Quds, I had a lot of fear about entering and exiting the West Bank. And, the fear was about everything: soldiers, settlers, Palestinians. I mean, but doing it on a daily basis because I had to get to and from work, started to kind of break me of some of that fear. And so my reporting as a journalist that had mostly revolved around marginalized groups inside of Israel, really, with the occasional story about the West Bank, or sometimes I wrote about the West Bank from inside of Israel, either from Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, right? Um, but my kind of fear was broken down by making that daily commute. And so I started pitching more stories about things in the West Bank. And one of those stories, I need the translator again, fast forward now to 2012, I guess. And so I reached out to Mohamed, you know, um, to work together on a story actually about the separation of Palestinian families between West Bank and Gaza. It was a very difficult story to work on emotionally. Um, and when I reached out to Mohamed to work on the story with me initially, and that piece ran in Al Jazeera English, um, and he responded that yes, he would work on the story with me. Maybe Mohamed, you can talk a little bit about that day.
I think what brings people together uh, is when they just feel that the other side is just as a human as they are.
Hmm.
Uh, Many things the occupation is trying to do is to dehumanize the other side, create this fake separation, create the mistrust, and also focusing on that we are different. We are different, but in the end of the day, we are the same. And we are all humans, and humans think and feel like each other, regardless of their citizenship, regardless of their background. And I think after spending some time with each other and talking with each other, we just found that we are just like normal human.
Well, but specifically that day that we reported on the separation of families between Gaza and
Yeah,
West Bank, Mohammed.
and that story, I think that uh, give us hope that look what those couple are doing, and their case is like hopeless. It's like so hard for them to be together. But look at us, that we are supposed to be like away from each other, but now we are together. So there
Mm.
was some kind of like a chance that despite everything, despite all of this continuous like attempts to separate the two sides, but we ended up together working on a story like this. And I think that's where we saw the 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 challenge, the difference, and the opportunity at the same time that this can work. For my family and my father especially, his concern was about getting married, building a family, and the impact of that on the children when they grow up, their identity, their how they will be treated by other people. And he didn't want them to be confused about their identity. He didn't want them to serve in the army when they grow up. He didn't want them to have an Israeli citizenship. So these were his concerns, especially for someone who spent his life working for the PLO and Palestinian Authority. This was like the opposite of everything that he believed in. Um, for me, I saw a different thing that I understand his concerns. I think they are legitimate. But I didn't see myself or Maya doing that, that we would raise our kids in that way, that they will go to serve in the army or they will be like Zionist or something like that. For me, I saw it as an opportunity to have kids with a wonderful woman from a different culture, the opposing culture, actually, the enemy culture. Uh, but will give the kids opportunity to see things and to live life that we didn't have to live, to be a mix of those two sides, but to see the two sides and to feel the suffering of the two people.
As far as my family, they're quite progressive. They didn't really take an issue with the relationship on the basis of, ethnicity or nationality or religion or anything like this. Where my mother voiced concern was after Muhammad's family rejected me, she felt that it would create a lot of tension in the relationship, and problems in the relationship in the long term. Also, I did face pushback from Israelis, um, friends, acquaintances, strangers. There's one moment that stands out in my mind. There was someone had Muhammad needed a, a, a DVD of a TV show he'd worked on that had gone to Gaza, a French television show. He'd gone to Gaza with French TV and done this episode about fishermen in Gaza. And for some reason, we don't remember exactly who the guy was. Anyways, it was being passed to Mohammed by this Israeli fellow who knew the French journalist, right? This chain, handing this DVD off. I went to Jerusalem to pick up the DVD. And the fellow, Jewish Israeli, once he realized that Mohammed and I were not just colleagues, but also, in a relationship, he was like, come sit and have a coffee with me, Maya. And I didn't know what his agenda was. And I said, okay, sat down and had a coffee with him. And he started hitting me with the, well, I've met Mohammed. He's a very nice guy, so on and so forth. But really, you should not be going out with him. And hit me with some pretty heavy kind of, racist kind of stuff that, I should be with a Jewish man. And he understood the draw of non-Jews. He had had a relationship with a Chinese woman. And, but when it came time to get married, his mother said, break up with her. And so he did. And now he was kind of trying to pass that advice along to me, and he was like, look, Maya, if you really want to get married, I could call up right now, like 10 different guys who would be dying to go out with you and maybe even marry you. And I was just like, okay, this is nuts. And I politely, declined. But, there were other moments like that people were just like, what are you doing? And I faced pushback. Yeah. And that's no small thing. I mean, even if these people aren't family, I felt very much like part of the place and part of the society and the culture. And so, I mean, that was painful to me to feel increasingly like, oh, I don't really have a place here. Not within the confines of, being in this relationship. We won't have a place here together. I think we started to see the writing on the wall around that time.
For the future of my children, I hope they live in peace. I hope they will live in a place where there is no conflict. If they decide to go back there to live just freely, wherever they decide to go.
For the future, I can't imagine that we would go back as a family. Definitely, I don't want my children to go alone there, even as adults. Even if I'm old, if they decided to go back, I would probably follow them in an attempt to keep them safe. The point being, if I have to imagine some sort of future in which my children are adults, and they're Jewish Palestinian, Israeli Palestinian, American Jewish Israeli Palestinian, however they want to self-define, I hope that they will be able to always look at all the people on every side. And there are many sides. I don't think there's just two sides. There are many sides. I want them to always be able to look at other people's humanity. I want them to be compassionate and empathetic for everyone involved, because everyone's suffering right now there. And whether they're a civilian or a soldier or a Hamas militant, like even the people in uniform are humans, right? Everyone's suffering. People don't do crazy things. Or people don't go to the army, also the Israeli army, unless they're suffering. There's suffering on all sides. And I want my children to be aware. I don't want them to, at this age, to be aware of the suffering, but when they're older, I want them to be sophisticated and nuanced and complex in their thinking. I feel that my children do not define themselves as either or. And I think that's beautiful. My son told me the other day that he's Jewish and he's Muslim. And I think that's fantastic. I don't see any contradiction between the two.
I hope my kids will have the chance to live in peace, the peace that I didn't have the chance to live in because things were complicated and always a conflict. I hope when they grow up, things will be much better than now.